Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, one and all, whenever and wherever you may be listening to us. You have your ears tuned in to the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast. However, this is not a normal show, as this is a special edition featuring myself, the real Danny D. Dan Dorrit, and Real Sports Wrestling editor Nickolas Patches Jarosh, as we're going to cover anything and everything we wish to talk about on this very special edition of the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast. Now, before we jump in, an announcement needs to be made. You're going to hear more about this on the regularly scheduled program tomorrow, but the Real Sport Wrestling editor has an announcement to make as far as the recaps go and my future with the website. So, Patches?
I'll go ahead and take it away. So, we have great news that we have found a capable recap writer from a separate website who we're bringing on solely for that purpose. Now, I do want to emphasize this has nothing to do with your recaps not being up to par, but we can bring in something just focused on that, and then that lets you free up and spread your talents elsewhere. We're very excited to get that rolling.
And Kyle, if you're listening, welcome to the family, and you screw up my recaps, I'm going to screw you up in Toronto. Anyway, Dan, welcome to the special edition. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Patches. I just want to thank you for relieving Ed of those duties. Not a shot at Ed. We do the Sports Du Jour podcast, as many of you know, all 5 of you probably.
6. We now have 6 subscribers on SoundCloud, by the way. Just want to give that update.
So, all 6 of you that listen, I just want to let you guys know we will be moving the Sports Du Jour podcast during football season starting September 4th to have our Monday evening quarterback, where Ed, myself, and hopefully Rob Parks Jr. will all be on there discussing the week in NFL, why I do some degenerate sweating in DFS and possible gambling, and Ed tries to run a fantasy wrestling league that you guys will be hearing more about.
Yes, that will be coming up. Our first week is kicking off. We're going to, for right now, it is just for Real Sport writers. Perhaps, maybe down the line, we'll open it up to the fans, but you're going to have to pay me a hefty fee if you want to be involved in this. That's just the way it goes. Fat kids broke. Just saying. All right. But after all of that is said and done, we are, in fact, a wrestling podcast, and this is our special edition. So, Patches, welcome to the show, first of all. We've been trying to get you on for the entire 18 weeks we've had this. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, how long you've been with the website, and let the people know what you're into.
I'm going to forget how long I've been on the website. I've been on the website since, it's been over a year now. I'm going to say roughly WrestleMania 32 time, I think was what it was. I've been watching wrestling for over 15 years. I've been a big fan that entire time, and I've been writing my wrestling in varying forms for over 10 years. I am always pleased to be on board with Real Sport to focus on quality content and not clickbait and ads.
Yeah, that is a big thing that we do stress on the website. We don't have any ads. You're not going to be asked to fill out a survey or get your genitalia enhanced or check out the 6 beautiful women and the 5 ugly women that are on SmackDown. You're not going to be asked about any of that. On Real Sport, you get exactly what you want, and that's hard-hitting sports commentary from the fans, by the fans, for the fans. Now, let's talk about some wrestling. Patches, one thing we got to talk about, and it's something that the people have to know about you. You told me right before the show aired, Rosemary, Laurel Van Ness, those are your women. Why?
I like crazy. I dig crazy chicks.
There you have it. So, CM Punkish kind of way, like, is AJ too sane for you, or like, what level of crazy do they have to be at to ride the Space Mountain in Texas?
I think it varies from different crazy to crazy, but the real truth is that the reason I really appreciate Laurel Van Ness and Rosemary is that they are not just female competitors who happen to be a little batty or female competitors who say that they're the best. They're characters. And they stick to their characters, and they play those characters extremely well. And As long as people are putting on good, entertaining television and playing with good characters, then that's my favorite thing about wrestling.
Now, you brought up the little baddie, and I know me and Dan have gone a few rounds about this. Natalya. Dan, we saw it again this weekend, or this week on SmackDown. You still digging this at all? Is this doing anything for you, Dan?
I just wanted to get the belt. She deserves the belt. She's been around for a while. I think I don't want to give away my prediction just yet, but let's just say that I'm not feeling the glow.
I don't think are any of us feeling the glow? I know I'm not. I've been a critic of it since day one.
I'm going to half-heartedly defend Naomi here. And the reason I say that is because most of what I like about Naomi is specific to her entrance and her in-ring skill. I think she's better in the ring than a lot of times she gets credit for. And as much as I dislike the LED tricked out title, the entrance in itself is actually great.
No, it's god-awful. It's god-awful.
That being said,
it's a lot better in person, Ed. I have to agree with Nick on that. It is a lot better in person than it comes across on TV, just like Nakamura's entrance, in my opinion.
And I'll agree with that as well. And that being said, the problem is Naomi has been given almost zero character depth. She's a catchphrase in bright colors. Like, that's it. And
Naomi's character is her cat. Two paws. Follow her
that's
on Instagram.
Natalya. You're thinking Natty.
I apologize. I thought you said Natty and not Naomi. I apologize.
No, Naomi is a catchphrase in bright colors. Natty she's a great wrestler, and she doesn't know how to act for shit.
This is true. This is very true.
She acts like she is a 12-year-old middle schooler who is PMSing. Like, that's the best way I can
Not only that, she acts like a 12-year-old middle schooler who is trying to play a character in a bad middle school play that is PMSing.
Hold on. You want to talk about bad acting? I mean, and I think it was done intentionally. James Ellsworth and Carmella backstage on SmackDown. I have seen better acting in my second grade son's school play.
I believe that.
It was so. It was so terrible. It was kind of enjoyable. Oh my god.
I'm also going to come to the defense of the Chinless Wonder, because I will admit, when he first was getting a lot of television time, I was upset. I thought it was dumb. I was not happy with a character that was essentially a jobber who had not been seen on television suddenly being a part of a world championship storyline. But the more I've looked into things, I looked up, James Ellsworth may be new to the WWE, but he has paid his dues.
Dude, that guy can actually wrestle. Like, he can actually wrestle.
Yeah, and he can actually go. And if this is the way that he puts food on his table and gets to play a character that has the crowd, like him or not, then I'm all for it. And I think he's great for Carmella. She needed something else, and it's working.
Yes, I agree 100%.
No, oh my god, no. You guys are so wrong, and let me tell you why. And the reason you guys are wrong is because you both belong to the indie, smart, kind of almost self-hating of the WWE group. You guys belong to the group of people that just automatically assume the WWE sucks. And yet you're cheering for this guy, and you're liking this guy, and you're praising how much this guy can wrestle. But yet, 5 minutes into a conversation, you guys are saying how much the 80s sucked because they were over cartoonish and everything else.
You've never once heard me say that.
Maybe my argument's more or less not with you, but with just the wrestling community in general. The 80s sucked. It was over cartoonish. Nobody could believe it. It was just superheroes and dumb stuff. This is dumb stuff. This is stupid.
Okay. there were flaws in the 80s, but my biggest flaw in the 80s was Hulk Hogan was a terrible wrestler.
Hulk Hogan didn't need to be a good wrestler, though.
I didn't say he needed to be. He fit his time perfectly, but hands down, Hulk Hogan is a terrible wrestler. The best match he's ever had was, ignoring spectacle, the best pure wrestling match he's ever had was with The Rock, and The Rock carried him through that match.
Now, you see, this is what you say he was a terrible wrestler, and I'll give it to you. He isn't the most technically sound. But what is your definition of a wrestler?
My definition of wrestler is in-ring ability. That is when it comes to wrestling.
So
my definition of a wrestler is a combination of in-ring ability, charisma, and using your character.
Stop right there. Stop right there. If it's by Dan's definition, Hulk Hogan was a terrible wrestler. By your definition, Hulk Hogan is one of the best wrestlers ever. Because if you throw Hulk Hogan on a scale with charisma and mic work, there was nobody better in the history of wrestling than Hulk Hogan, as far as charisma and mic work go. No one else could hold.
A specific word. You got to focus on a specific word. I said combination.
Okay.
He's got charisma and he's got mic work. He's got no in-ring ability. He's got a leg drop. That's it.
That's fine.
That's why talents like John Cena, who I think gets a lot more flack than he ever deserves, and the 5 moves of doom is a more applicable thing to Hulk Hogan than it ever was to John Cena.
Absolutely.
Who has A, B, C, and D. He has everything he needs. You know, going back, one person I consider one of the greats would be Eddie Guerrero. And he had all of it. The same with Edge, who is still to this day my favorite of all time. He had everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. But the thing is, you said combination, and that's fine. I'm going to explain this. I don't know how much you follow baseball. I know Dan's going to get it. Look at, there's a popular sabermetric called WAR, wins above replacement, which means how more valuable a player is than the 100% average player that's ever played that position ever. Okay? So if you put everything on a scale of 1 to 10 for Hogan, okay, and 5 is straight down the middle average in in-ring ability, charisma, and mic work, just those 3 things, okay, and the average wrestler gets 5, 5, and 5. Hogan gets a 0 in in-ring work. I'm not going to argue with you on that. Maybe give him a 1 because, strength is a thing. You give him a 10 for charisma.
I'll give him
a 10.
1.
Okay, all right, so even then, you give him a 10 for charisma, you give him a 10 for in-ring work. Altogether, that adds up to 21. That averages out to 7 apiece. That's a well above average wrestler. I mean, it's not going to be the average.
When you take everything together, but
You said combination. That's everything together.
Yeah, but that's also in the same way that there is an outlier. That's not a true average because one of his abilities is well below average.
Well,
I'll be honest, if we're doing WAR, when you look at defensive WAR, I'm going to get a little baseball on you. When you look at defensive WAR, you can go negative, and I don't know if I don't know if I give Hogan positive. I don't know if I give him a 0. I might give him negative as far as an in-ring marker.
Did he ever injure anybody? Did he ever break anybody's neck?
We're not talking botches.
That would be a negative. That would be a negative defensive WAR, though. Is hurting somebody repeatedly. Nia Jax has a negative defensive WAR.
Okay, so in that case, does Seth Rollins have a negative defensive WAR?
No, because I think even though he makes a ton of errors, which would put your defensive WAR in the negatives, he makes a ton of fantastic plays as well. He just does everything, so you're going to get some mistakes, but you're also going to get some good stuff, so they kind of cancel each other out, and I think his good far outweighs the bad, where with Nia Jax, really doesn't.
The bad outweighs the bad.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's such a subjective thing. Like, you talk to anybody else. For example, you had to edit my 10 pieces for the Mount Rushmore series, correct?
Yes.
Those were so subjective. Everybody that I talked to that read those, I was getting people I wasn't even considering for some of those, like the manager thing. I had Paul Heyman number 1 by a mile, and I was getting laughed at because I was told, well, you don't remember the Grand Wizard. You don't remember Classy Freddie Blassie and how great he was, or Captain Lou Albano and how great he was. You know, you don't remember Teddy Long in WCW. Wrestling is such a subjective thing. We could argue about this for years and still not cover everything.
To be fair, it is a subjective thing, but anyone who doesn't say Paul Heyman is the greatest manager of all time doesn't understand Paul Heyman.
Well, I mean...
Yes.
Yeah, but there could be cases made that...
I'm not saying Captain Lou Albano and the Grand Wizard aren't great. They are, and they deserve their recognition. But if you don't believe Paul Heyman is the greatest manager of all time and one of the best talkers this industry has ever seen, then you don't understand Paul Heyman. It's not to say that you misunderstand wrestling. You just clearly don't get Paul Heyman.
But they could say the exact same thing about Bobby Heenan. You look at everything Heyman's done, Heenan did it before Heyman did.
As an aside about Bobby Heenan, the man, I'm quite sad he has gotten into the shape he is. Have y'all seen Bobby Heenan lately?
I have not.
It's heartbreaking. It really is to see somebody that was so full of life.
It was jaw cancer, and he had to have a lot of reconstructive work done. And he is a shell of his former self in a very literal way. I will say, and it's sad to say this, but I actually went to Comic Palooza, a convention in Houston one year, and I got a picture with Ted DiBiase, and Bobby Heenan was right next to him, and I didn't realize it until 2 days later.
Yeah, it's definitely a sad thing.
He looks nothing at all like himself, and I didn't realize until later what he currently looks like, and realized I was right next to him, and I couldn't tell.
Well,
I just looked up pictures. Wow.
You know, that's kind of a commentary on most of the wrestlers from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. You look at a lot of them are not quite what they used to be. I mean, with the exception of, oh god dang, I can't think of his name. Ric Flair guy. He wrestled Ric Flair a lot. Steamboat. With the exception of Steamboat and Hogan and probably Flair.
And I would say Sergeant Slaughter just because of the chin, even though he's, again, a shell of his former self, but you can't miss that chin.
Well, yeah, like, they don't age. Like, Steamboat looks, if he dyes his hair black, I wouldn't know if it's Steamboat in the 70s or Steamboat now. The guy looks legit fantastic.
I got to see Steamboat one time, and I'm quite proud of that opportunity. It was the night after WrestleMania, I believe it was 25, which was in Houston, and at that WrestleMania was that multi-legend match against Chris Jericho.
Oh, yeah.
And the next night, Steamboat wrestled again on Raw, and I mean, we were nosebleeds, but that's one of those things that there were only going to be so many more opportunities to get to see. And it was a little unnerving that Steamboat at that time, having been out of the ring for so long, had not missed a beat. Yeah,
I mean, the "You Still Got It" chant, that was about as loud as I've ever heard it on television, and it was worth it.
And about as true as I've ever seen it be.
Absolutely. Now,
you know what's sad? At Mania this year, I was at the WrestleCon show, and there was just some guys that were in that match. Gangrel was one. He needs to hang it up.
I know which match you're talking about. I got to see that recently, and it was like...
There's somebody I specifically want to bring up, but he's such a legend that I just...
It was like the Gimmick Battle Royal, but worse.
Who's the legend,
Gimmick Battle Royal from WrestleMania 17?
Yeah. Oh, that was... And you know, that was probably the best WrestleMania ever, too. And...
Yep. Hey, they all have a blind spot.
That's true. Dan, who's the legend?
Patches, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was Dean Malenko.
Yeah, Dean Malenko used to be amazing, and he was clearly just there for the appearance.
Yeah, but, I mean, let's be honest, the guy's in his 50s. I mean...
Let me tell you, he looks like he's about in his 70s.
Yeah, he does.
He should not have been in an over the top rope battle royal.
Well, That's the difficult thing. You look at athletes throughout history, and even some of the greatest of the greats in other sports played a couple seasons too long. Willie Mays played a couple seasons too long. Hank Aaron, couple seasons too long. It's very rare you see somebody go out the way they should. Peyton Manning, probably a season too long.
Peyton Manning played a season too long and then was saved by a defense.
Okay, he played 2 seasons too long then. Brett Favre played 4 seasons too long.
Yes.
That's the way it is with athletes,
Mick Foley has played about 17 seasons too long.
See, that's unfair. Because that takes it back to 2000, and Foley was really good in 2000.
Okay, then I'm going to say 13 seasons too long. Actually, no, let me be fair. I'm going to say 11 seasons too long because his match with Edge at WrestleMania 21 was about his peak in his later years, and nothing after that was really great.
Did that come before or after the thumbtack spot with Randy Orton?
I believe that was just before.
Okay.
And that is a fair other thing to bring up. But my numbers are off, but my point is Mick Foley is a money-grubbing whore, according to his own admission, and should have retired long, long ago.
Okay.
You know what?
Come back.
Mick Foley will always be my greatest wrestler because he took probably one of the best bumps there are in wrestling right now by taking the Joey Ryan penis flip.
Oh my God. Why do you gotta bring it up, Dan? Every week you bring up this crap. It's as bad as the legendary anus of Jushin Thunder Liger.
I am so happy you watched that clip. I'm so happy.
And
I just, it sounds to me like you're jealous of the legendary anus of Jushin Thunder Liger.
The sad thing is, I was scrolling through Facebook while Impact was on because I love Impact to death, but Grado kills me. Like, migraine kills me. And I was scrolling through, and I came across the video again, and you know what I did?
Watched it.
I didn't keep scrolling, I watched it. And I was amazed.
One of the greatest clips ever. It is literally one of the greatest PWG spots ever.
Well, the thing about it is you could see who takes wrestling seriously, who thought it was funny, and who was just there to make a joke. Because the level of enthusiasm for all 10 guys in that little spot was fantastic. Liger was all about it. I think it was Ciampa or Ciampa, whatever you call him.
Ciampa.
Hated it because he sat there and he's like, yeah, I'm going to have to do this. And just walked into the ring and just thumbed another guy's ass and just stood there. I mean, it was the epitome of the whole spectrum of what indie wrestling is, from the serious guys to the funny guys to just the terrible.
So many WWE guys in that clip, though. Like, I'm trying to run it over my head. Like, so many WWE guys in that spot is what makes it so good. Like, that's another thing that makes it so good.
I believe Rich Swann was there.
Yep.
Pete Dunne.
And
Cedric Alexander.
Cedric Alexander.
Yeah. Finn wasn't in that one, was he?
No, he was already in NXT by that point.
Okay. Anyway, there's one more thing in my boring day at work today that I came across. And I kind of spoke to Dan about this earlier. Patches, I want to know if you ever heard it. The feud between Bubba the Love Sponge and Awesome Kong. You know anything about that?
I know
yes.
exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, no. Do you? I'm guessing you're thinking of the backstage fight where Bubba the Love Sponge got the crap beat out of him, right?
No, I may actually be skipping over what you're talking about. I'm thinking of the ensuing lawsuit between Bubba the Love Sponge and Hulk Hogan.
We'll get to that here in a second, because I went down a rabbit hole I never want to go down again. But for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, apparently it started, I'm not sure which event came first, whether it was Awesome Kong calling into a radio show and getting called just about every filthy name you can call a woman by Bubba the Love Sponge, or it was right after was it an earthquake or a typhoon or something in Haiti? I think it was an earthquake. And Karma's Haitian. She was trying to raise money for Haiti, and Bubba the Love Sponge being the bully, heel, jackass that he is, yeah, sure, tweeted F. Haiti, and Karma saw it. They got into a verbal altercation where Bubba said something he shouldn't have, and Karma, to quote Vince Russo, it was the most savage beating he ever seen in his life. X-Pac described it as if Russo wasn't there to pull her off, he would be dead. It was terrible. She beat the hell out of him. The after videos that the medics took, his nose was broken, his orbital bone was broken, it looked like, both eyes were swollen shut, and he had a fat lip.
That brings me a lot of joy to hear, because I've felt for a long time that Bubba the Love Sponge deserved a good ass kicking.
He deserves more than an ass kicking. But we're not going to go there. We're going to try to keep it PG. But that brings, and I say we're going to try to keep it PG. We've already talked about buttholes, and now we're going to talk about other genitalia. Speaking of Bubba the Love Sponge, we all know that Hulk Hogan went on a racist tirade during a video after having sex with Bubba the Love Sponge's trophy wife. And I just so happened to be doing research for a rather large piece I'm doing for TNA. About TNA, not for TNA. And came across Hulk Hogan's testimony.
It's glorious, isn't it?
It's sickening. It's thoroughly sickening that I firmly believe that Hulk Hogan believes that let me try that over. Terry Bollea believes that Hulk Hogan has a 10-inch penis. Terry Bollea does not. It's more like 6, apparently. Or you listen to his former best friend, Bubba the Love Sponge, it's like 8. I couldn't find the same Reddit channel that we found to find Batista's girth, which was very, very heavily researched. If you're on Reddit, you need to look up how big, or what exactly Batista's packing. Can we talk about something else now?
Please.
Since we're on kind of the TNA subject, let's bring up our women's champion in Sienna and how she is claiming gimmick infringement on Charlotte.
Patrick, what are your thoughts?
I believe this is more bluster than anything else. I believe Sienna's having a little fun online. If Charlotte went to the point of throwing pinkies up in her entrance, then yes, I believe it would be a clear shot at her, but at this point, I think it's just all in good fun.
See, I don't even know if I would go that far with the pinkies up thing. I mean, it depends on how she does it. If she holds the pinky in front of her like she's taking a sip of tea, then I don't have an issue with that, because that's something that her and Becky have been on here since she kind of came over to the SmackDown roster.
Well, I agree that pulling it up in that way may not be as clear cut, but when I say pinkies up in a way that would copy Sienna, Charlotte already puts her arms out in her entrance, and changing open hands to pinkies out would not be difficult for her to do, and I think would be a clear shot at Sienna.
Well, it comes down to two things. Okay. For one, you can only position your fingers and or hand in a certain way so many different ways. And over the course of wrestling history, if you look at all of the wrestling organizations and everywhere that's ever been, there's been people that have done the same thing. We had 5 different people claim they were the Nature Boy. How many people have you heard claim themselves as uncrowned champion? Or how about the King? How many different kings have we had? Just in the WWE alone, I can name you probably 10.
But how many at the exact same time?
There's
everything
3?
Wrestling has been done before and has been done over again. But less often do we see clear-cut comparisons like this happening at the same time. Well, and I don't think it's reached that point yet, but I think it could.
Oh, absolutely, I think it could. But one thing that I think we're all getting trolled here. For one, I think it's Sienna literally just doing something to have a feud with a larger organization, maybe get her name more out there to people who have no clue who Sienna is or care about the GFW, and maybe we're seeing the spark to a slow burn that could eventually envelop Sienna going to the WWE saying, hey, remember when I tweeted you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you were holding your pinky out and you were completely ripping me off? Well, now it's time for you to pay. I've been doing this forever. You're ripping me off. It's time for the original to show the outcast what's going on. This could be the groundwork for a feud in 10 years.
There's one major flaw with that. I'm just going to tell you that your theory there is a little broken. The gimmick might be slightly obsolete.
Oh my god.
By that point in time.
Just once, I want to get through a show without mentioning broken Matt Hardy. Or, there's three things that are always mentioned on this show, and it's starting to get to me. Broken Matt Hardy. Joey Ryan's penis. And Jaime's man crush on Baron Corbin.
This is true.
And we're going to talk to Jaime tomorrow, or today in his time. I don't know. Time differences confuse me.
I mean, if you want other things mentioned, I can just bring up Kenny Omega.
You've been warned. You were warned when we tried to do this last night about mentioning either of the two O's in my presence and what it would do for your future appearances on the show. I tried to fire Dan for this. And if it wasn't for an arbitrator, Dan wouldn't have a job with me. Just saying.
Yeah, he also doesn't like Zack Sabre Jr.
That's strike two, Dan. We talked. We litigated this.
What about Matt Riddle? Can I bring up Matt Riddle?
I don't know who that is. He's not important.
Oh my goodness. So since we're speaking a little bit independent wrestling here, as much as Ed loves it, I got a dilemma here, guys, and let me get your intakes. So Friday night, I'm going to the Evolve show here in Baltimore,
and wasting your money.
Saturday, I had the option to travel to New York and go to Progress Wrestling and an Evolve show in New York.
And waste more money.
Or next weekend, I can kick out the extra money, go to SummerSlam, and come back on the same day. Same thing I would do if I were to go to the two shows this weekend. Or I can just go to TakeOver Brooklyn.
How is this even a choice? How is this even a choice?
Ticket prices, that's how this is a choice.
Yeah, I understand how this is a choice based on the amount of money you're actually going to spend either way. Honestly, I would say Progress because Progress Wrestling is, in my opinion, one of the best indie companies today.
By far.
And getting to see them without the cost of flying to the United Kingdom, I think is an opportunity you can't pass up.
I know this can't be heard because this is an audio-only podcast, but my eyes have rolled so much in the last minute and a half.
So there is one other option, too. For this Saturday, Leo Rush's final independent show will be in the same building that Evolve is in the night before, but I'll get to see Leo the night before either way. So it's like if I don't go to New York this weekend, it's traveling one day next weekend to go to one of those shows. And if I'm going to one of those shows, I'll be honest, I'm probably leaning more towards TakeOver than I am SummerSlam, just because of the travel and the time. Like, the travel and the money, like, TakeOver tickets are half the price of SummerSlam, because I'm going to have to buy anything aftermarket for either one of those shows. And bus prices are actually almost double on Sunday than what they are that Saturday.
Also keep in mind that not just the ticket price differential, but having been to a 4-hour show with a 2-hour pre-show, boy, it's a long day.
It is. I mean, I did it at Mania.
And I did it at the Rumble, and it felt like an eternity. It's just too much wrestling in one day. It's not just too much wrestling, it's too much sitting there waiting for wrestling to happen.
Here's the only thing that I have to argue with myself on that, is if I go this Saturday, I'm watching a show from 4 to 7, taking an hour break, and then I'm watching a show from 8 to 11. So the time frame as far as it being SummerSlam or if I go this Saturday are both pretty much going to be the same as far as what I'm going to be doing for wrestling. But seeing the talents that I get to see, as South Pacific, I guess Travis Banks, TK Cooper, Pete Dunne, Jack Gallagher is going to be there. Trent, British Strong Style is going to be there. Like, just the amount of talent that's going to be on this.
Is that event Matt Riddle versus Atlas?
Yes, that is Matt Riddle versus Walter.
Walter, I mean, for the Atlas title.
Yes, and
yeah, that's worth it in my opinion.
And Walter will actually also be in Baltimore the night before, which I am extremely excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can't hold my tongue any longer. I've tried. I let you guys talk, but this is ridiculous. It's the second.
Go ahead. Really?
It's the
really
second.
Quick.
It's the second biggest show of the year. Next to WrestleMania, it's the most important show of the year. There are title matches throughout the card that are going to affect everything between now and the Rumble. You could see the last time you're going to see Brock Lesnar until the Rumble. The fact that this is even a choice, I understand money's tight. I get it. You want to get the most wrestling for your money, that's fine. Once in a lifetime chance. SummerSlam, 90% of the time, is on the West Coast. This time, it's not. If it wasn't 8 hours for me to get to New York, I'd strongly consider it. If I had more than $3.58 in my bank account, I'd strongly consider it. But the fact that this is a legit choice, where you have to choose between somebody that the world knows absolutely nothing about, or Brock freaking Lesnar in what could be his last time with the Universal Championship until he probably wins the Rumble, the fact that this is a choice just makes me want to scream at you.
I think it's also worth pointing out that the SummerSlam is going to be easy to watch, regardless of whether or not you're actually there. That is not the same can be said for the independent shows you're going to get a chance to go see. And the quality, I love my indie shows, but not all of them have the same television quality when they get transmitted to DVD.
Yes.
I get it. I do. And, if it came down... But the way I look at it is, I'm going to use a hockey analogy, and I know it's probably going to go over both of your heads. I live 5 minutes from a AA affiliate for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I have season tickets to them. They're called the Wheeling Nailers. Fantastic value for your money to watch a hockey game. I mean, $20 you can get like 5 beers on a Friday, a ticket 10 rows from the glass, and it's an amazing thing. The St. Louis Blues play Pittsburgh, or could play Pittsburgh or could play Columbus. I'm about equidistant from whichever one. I can't go home to St. Louis every Saturday or every time they have a game to watch them. So that's my best bet to go to one of those cities. If it came down to the Nailers being in the playoffs or the Blues having a regular season game against Columbus, it's not even a choice. You go to the NHL. You go to the big boys because it's more special.
Well, that's where the analogy kind of falls apart. This is the second time that Progress has ever been in the U.S. I don't know if they'll be back again. I don't know if I'll see these talents again. Like I get what you're saying, and we're going to have to move on. This is obviously going to have to be a decision that I make. Let's just I am getting the feeling that even after talking this through with you guys, I don't think TakeOver Brooklyn's in the cards. It's either going to be this Saturday or next Sunday that I make this trip. But let's move on, because I can see that Red's turning a little Ed, or if you want to reverse that, Ed is turning a little red, whichever way you want to say it.
Well, I'm turning red because I am so amazingly good-lookingly hot that sometimes, like when you turn a burner on your stove, it turns red. Same deal. When you're this attractive, occasionally you give off some extra heat, and it turns you Turned you a little red. So there you go.
I think you're just hot because you don't get to go see Progress.
I think he's hot about that too.
My therapist told me I have to be nicer. I have to be nicer to you people. I can't even call you guys you people anymore. You guys try my patience. You do. And it's not something that I'm proud of. I have anger issues. We all do. I've never wanted to punch you harder in the beard, in the neck beard that you have, Dan. I've never wanted to punch you harder in the neck beard than what I do right now.
There is no neck beard, as you can see.
I'm not saying it's a physical neck beard. You chode. I'm saying you are a neck beard. In every sense of the douchebaggiest of the definition, you are a neck beard. Moving on. Can we move on? Let's move on.
I think we can.
Okay. Let's play a little trivia game, just so the people can get introduced to you there, Patches. Now, this is something, again, while doing my research for the TNA project that I'm working on. Did you know that Ring of Honor and TNA were once closely linked and shared a common champion?
Yes, I believe it was 2002 or 2003.
2004, I believe. It was 2004. Because it was right as the agreement broke up.
I believe the everything fell apart because the then, I'm going to say, president or owner or some figure at Ring of Honor was wrapped up into a scandal, and
do you remember?
TNA did not want to get wrapped up into it.
Do you remember what the scandal was?
I believe it was child porn.
Yeah, and he tried. I mean, Chris Hansen was involved. Let's just leave it at that. Chris Hansen was involved. Take what you will. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, watch the South Park episode called Les Petites Tourettes. It'll explain everything. Who Chris Hansen is. I came across that today, and it literally blew my mind. The common champion was AJ Styles. You look at all of the guys, if that agreement would have gone forward, where would we be now? If Ring of Honor and TNA would still have that working relationship. Guys like Christopher Daniels, Chris Sabin, Kazarian, Cody Rhodes would still be in TNA. That's the thing. That's something I want to ask you guys about. The Next Gen Championship, the GFW Next Gen Championship, is still a sanctioned belt by GFW and by Anthem, correct?
Technically, but it hasn't been mentioned since Cody's been off television.
Cody's still that champion, correct?
Last I heard.
Okay. Now, there was in the interview that Bruce Pritchard did exclusively with Real Sport, he mentioned, or it's Jeff Jarrett, he mentioned that there is something big coming on the 17th. Bruce Pritchard is making an announcement on the 17th at Destination X. Jarrett let it slip. It's something about title belts. I'm just thinking out loud here. Is Ethan Carter III going to take on Cody Rhodes for that Next Gen Championship and unite it with the worst idea in wrestling history? The second worst idea in wrestling history, the Grand Championship. What do you think, Patches?
I would be completely on board with that possibility. I am not that hopeful that it's going to happen. I actually believe that the announcement is going to be a little more muted than it's being made to sound like at this point. I believe they're going to unveil new championships and just clear the air and clarify what they are called moving forward.
Oh, and I think Bruce Pritchard's getting fired.
Oh, God, I hope so.
I've been a huge critic of the job that Bruce Pritchard has done. Now,
Bruce Pritchard seems to be more invested in plugging his terrible podcast on Impact Television than he is actually playing a decent character on Impact Television.
That is very true. Now, Mr. Pritchard, if you are listening to us and you would like to defend yourself on this podcast, get a hold of us, please. And we will be more than happy to tell you all about yourself.
So, did a little bit of searching here. That's why I've been quiet. Cody actually is still listed on the GFW Wrestling official roster.
Is the Next Gen Championship still listed?
That's why.
The championship is around his waist.
That's why he's still listed. According to Wikipedia, he has no ties with GFW.
But this is what's really weird about this. It looks like this roster hasn't been updated in a really long time. The more I look at it, you still have Sheldon Benjamin on this roster. Trent Beretta.
More than likely, that roster is probably reflective of, or a reflection of, the talent that we're going to see in the GFW Amped Anthology.
Here's another thing. Dan, where are you getting that roster from?
GlobalForceWrestling.com/roster/.
Huh. See, normally are you looking at the alumni section? Because I got suckered into that too.
I clicked on GFW roster. That was all I did.
Okay, that's going to show you everything. That's going to show you everybody in it. If you scroll down, you're still going to see Kurt Angle, Christian, Sting, Ric Flair.
I don't see any of those guys.
Well, that's what got me. There's a little subheading to the right. You go for roster. It'll be there.
But anyway, when I was looking on did some other searching, I don't see the actual Next Gen title listed as a title for Global Force Wrestling on other sites. So, I don't know where that leaves us. I'm just as lost as I was to begin with.
I think maybe it could be one of them things where they've written it off of television or just forgotten about it. In case Cody Rhodes comes back, it'll give him something to come back and fight with.
It's also worth noting that Global Force Wrestling roster and pictures still shows Nick Aldis as the world champion and Christina Von Eerie as the women's champion.
Yes, it does.
So, it's definitely outdated to a certain extent.
Well, there you go. One more thing I want to get to. I said that the Grand Championship was the worst idea in professional wrestling. Anybody want to take a guess on... Or I said it was second worst. Anybody want to take a guess on what the worst is?
David Arquette?
No. I honestly... Maybe we'll get to that at another time, but I didn't have that much of an issue with that. I mean, I had a major issue, but not as much as what everybody else has.
I think there are a lot of things that I could call the worst idea in wrestling, and so I find it hard to narrow it down, but where are you going with this?
Dan, we'll get there. Dan, what's your guess?
James Ellsworth grabbing the woman's Money in the Bank briefcase.
No, that was the greatest idea because you know who called that? You know who said on this very podcast that was going to happen? This guy. This guy. I said it. And your dog is agreeing with me, and you know it. That's why you muted your mic, Dan. He is praising me right now because of it. I was right. But I digress. The worst idea in...
Being right about the end of the world is not something you want to be happy about.
Still right. I'm still taking that as a win. The worst idea in the history of wrestling... And it's something that... It's the Brawl for All. Do you guys remember the Brawl for All?
Yeah, it was just as bad as the Impact Grand Championship.
It was way worse because it was real. And somebody, you put Dr. Death, Steve Williams, who they really wanted to win that, and he gets knocked cold by Bart Gunn, by a jobber. By somebody who's a tag team specialist who lost his tag team brother, and his brother is way more famous than he ever was.
Yeah, at this point, very few people even realize that Bart Gunn and Billy Gunn were a tag team.
Well, wasn't Bart Gunn also a tag team with Bradshaw?
Yeah, I think they were the New Blackjacks.
Yeah, I mean, just... Golly.
Also, Bradshaw gone on to much bigger and better things than Bart Gunn ever did.
Oh, he's a wrestling god. And you know, have you heard him? He is a wrestling god. Without John Bradshaw Layfield, we don't get the 16-time world champion. We literally can't see John Cena without John Bradshaw Layfield. I'll tell you what, I was
but I will say that JBL played a great role in John Cena's early career and his initial big run.
Oh, absolutely. I was such a fan of JBL, and this is going to tell you just how big of a wrestling nerd I've always been. Back around the start of the internet, there was a thing called e-fedding. Any of you guys ever had any experience with that?
No.
Actually, yes.
Yeah. I was in one for about 3 years, and my character was pretty much a ripoff of JBL. He had a little Filipino kid named Haji who would help him win his matches, who carried him around in a rickshaw. It was the greatest thing ever. I was a fantastic writer for this completely racist character, and it was fantastic. That's how big of a fan I was for JBL.
I was actually part of an EFED for a good long while and actually ran one for a period. My main characters, because I had a couple over the years, one was basically a better version of Rhino.
The man beast, yeah.
It was Rhino with more character. And the other was basically a creepier version of CM Punk with...
less character?
Blanking. With more character and
less
a
alcohol.
valet/girlfriend that was Emma Watson.
Oh. Wait. This had to be a little while ago. So are we talking like 12-year-old Emma Watson, you creep? Or are we talking like Beauty and the Beast Emma Watson, you creep?
No, this was by the point that Emma Watson was in her early 20s.
There's nothing that you can say that makes anyone a creep when it comes to Emma Watson. Emma Watson is a fabulous-looking young lady.
Perving at her in the Sorcerer's Stone, a little creepy.
Not when she's the same age as me, but... And I was doing that when we were the same age.
I'm going to concur with Dan, and I'm also going to say that Prisoner of Azkaban on... Yeah.
Maybe I was just more of a Cho Chang thing. I still don't see her appeal. Like,
Cho Chang was alright.
And this is why I can only deal with you for a short amount of time.
Well, Dan, fortunately for you, we got about 10 minutes left, so you got 10 more.
To be fair, on one last Harry Potter bit, if I'm telling the truth, my girl was Luna Lovegood.
Those eyes, yeah.
They're crazy.
Yeah, you got that right. That crazy.
You know, Patches, if you ever feel the need to come to visit Pittsburgh, my house is 2 blocks away from the mental ward. It's a really nice place, got some great food. You can order chili dogs every day you're in there. Great stuff. Fun activities, too. I'm telling you, it's awesome. But it's...
Ed showed me some of the ones that they gave him.
I mean, there's no shortage of mentally deficient people in the state of Texas. Let's just be clear.
That is very true.
I'm not going to have to travel if I really want to go looking.
But Ohio's brand of crazy is a unique blend. It's a unique blend of drug-addled mind fuckery and overall insanity. It's fantastic. You will never be the same, probably because of the hepatitis. But we're gonna move on.
Do you guys see any potential call-ups from NXT after SummerSlam?
Terrible segue, Dan. But no.
That's fine. I've been thinking about it for like 10 minutes.
Asuka, maybe. I think maybe it's time for her. But other than that, no.
I think Asuka's a possibility if it really depends on what they want to do with her. If they want to bring her up undefeated, which I think is a great move, then if she dominates Ember Moon again, then I think that's a good choice. That being said, my main pick as a call-up is actually 2 of them. Drew McIntyre.
Yes, I see
think
that.
Is coming up quickly. I think he's going to fall to Bobby Roode, and I think Bobby Roode's going to transition back into a feud with Roderick Strong. And I believe Drew McIntyre is going to come on up and take the role he so rightfully deserves as the chosen one. And I believe Aleister Black is going to be coming up sooner rather than later.
You know what? Hold on. Hold the phone right there. So glad you brought up Aleister Black. To give you a little bit more insight as to who I am for all you listeners, my ex-brother-in-law, who I am still really close with, we were both former Marines stationed at the same place. It's a long story. He has become a Jehovah's Witness late in his life. And I came across the video that he had watched at some point, and it was some holy rollers talking about the demonic symbols that were in the WWE, specifically Aleister Black.
Yes.
He is the second coming of Satan, apparently. And yeah,
His character's a Satanist.
Well,
but like even then, he's completely in control. Like the man has everything. He's in control of his character. He has well, I'm not saying creatively, but I'm saying
right.
As he's working, he's already shown that he has complete grasp on his character. I think something that gets overlooked at times or a little forgotten just because it's so on the surface is facial expressions and those little things that guys do in the ring that really bring out the emotion and the, in a way, reality of the moment. And Aleister Black has got that down to a T.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you. But going back to that video, the thing that lost all credibility with me was the fact that they said they'd covered John Cena before, and they've said how much John Cena is a Satanist and how he wants to overthrow humanity. And their main point was John Cena's hand gesture with the 3 fingers, 3 plus 3 equals 6. And 6 is a sign of Satan.
So I'm presuming these are the same people that believe that Monster Energy drink is
absolutely
is a Satanist symbol and probably have a working partnership with the Westboro Baptist Church.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm not saying anything like that. But
so I'm going to tell you guys an embarrassing story about myself. I watched that Monster video one time when I was extremely impaired, and I didn't drink Monster for like 2 weeks after that.
Impaired how, Dan? Did you?
I was really, really high.
I would say, did you have a date with Mary Jane?
Yeah, we'll go in that one.
Oh, wait. You're from Baltimore, so it's...
No, it was none of the hard stuff.
I would say, what do they do in Baltimore? Ketamine?
Baltimore is actually the heroin capital of the world.
I'd say Bel Air, Ohio's pretty close.
But let's just say, it was funny you brought up that Monster video, because that was the first thing that came to my mind, and I'm just like, alright, I gotta tell these guys this embarrassing story. I didn't drink Monster for like 2 weeks after that.
And I know what Dan's gonna be getting for Christmas. Oh, yes.
I drink all the... You've seen me drink Monster when we record the podcast now. Like, I'm back. I'm good.
See,
me and Monster get along again.
You need to go all natural with 100% Gatorade. Natural Gatorade.
I'll take my vitamin water 0.
On that note, I'm going to try to play podcaster on you and steer us back into a topic. Because before we go, I do want to talk about a specific thing, and that is the circulating rumors that Shinsuke Nakamura is going to leave the WWE when his contract is up.
I'm only going to be okay with this if he takes Dolph Ziggler with him. It's the only way I'm going to be okay with it. Whether they go back to, or whether they go to Japan, or the GFW, Ring of Honor, God forbid, Progress, or whatever. That's the only way I'm going to be okay with it, is if he takes Dolph with him.
I would be fine with Dolph going with him, or Dolph going to New Japan, even independent of anything else. That being said, I don't believe Nakamura, if WWE's not going to use him properly, because even at this point, even with the push they're giving him, it is clear that they still don't fully understand what to do with him. They just know that he's over, so they're working with that. But if they're not going to really invest in understanding his character and trying to make it work with the WWE style, then he belongs back in New Japan Pro Wrestling against.
Don't say it.
Take my warning with like a man.
Don't say it. No, we know who you're talking about. We know who you're talking about. I'm just going to talk over you. We know who you're talking about.
So, I believe that if he's not going to be in WWE, he belongs back in New Japan. And with his better entrance music.
I don't mind his entrance music here. I mind the strobe light.
I like his entrance music here. I really don't have any issues with it, but I do miss his New Japan entrance music.
I just like the violin.
One thing that I've been saying about his entrance lately, and maybe you guys disagree, I don't know, I feel like that should be kind of like a pay-per-view entrance as far as the strobe lights and everything. You can still give them something cool. The blackout, I love the blackout. I love the vibing on the screen, as I like to call it. But kind of as far as like when we get Finn Balor Demon King entrance, like kind of just something special to where we don't get it all the time because, like I said, that entrance is great in person. It's amazing. You can really get into it. You can really get behind it, and it's something that you will always remember when you see it one time live. But it comes across TV terribly, in my opinion, to where it just is highly annoying, and it makes me either want to fast forward if I'm on DVR or just change the channel for the 3 minutes that he's going to take to come out.
Well, here's how I would fix that. Take the strobe light out and just have a spotlight. Like, just have the spotlight, like have the and have his music hit, and then a spotlight just comes on him and just follows him. And maybe the spotlight flickers. Maybe you have like them roving things you see at movie premieres, the big ass lights, maybe those circle. That would be something cool, but the flashing lights gotta go. And one thing,
the strobe light is overdone, and I think, I will say, thinking on it, part of the reason that I think I guess tolerate Nakamura's entrance more, not just because of my love for him as a competitor and the fact that I can overlook flaws because I'm a big fan, but the fact that I've seen it live. Normally when Nakamura's coming out on SmackDown, I'm listening to it. I'm not watching it. You know,
you can't watch it. It's unwatchable.
But you get my point.
I do. I mean, because like the first night when he came out, the night after Mania, and they brought the violinist out, dude, it was great. It was amazing in person. Like
that was fantastic.
It is amazing in person. It's fantastic.
It's just the light.
But it's a
the lights gotta go.
thing.
Yes, exactly. It's completely different coming across TV, and I just wish they would do something.
Well, my thing about it is, you know, you look at some of the greatest entrances of all time, with the exception of The Undertaker, you knew, like that, who they were. And when they're running down, I always think how good of an entrance is by how well it would be received at the Royal Rumble. You know, you hear the violin screech, and you hear it start playing. Is he going to spend the 2 minutes before the next guy comes out dancing his way down the ring looking like, I'm not even going to try to be offensive there, but looking like somebody with severe problems dancing their way into the ring? Finn Balor is in the same position, whether he's the Demon King or whether he's Balor Club or whatever or Club or however he wants to say it. His entrance takes way too long.
But that being said, I think it's clear that they can do a run-in if they need to, and I think the way to fix that is simply by starting the music later. You start it once the music picks up if they're going to come out with a quick entrance, and I think that would solve a lot of those problems. On the note of being able to hear something and immediately know who it is, I'm actually planning on doing a piece on this soon on what I call, and I've heard called, the 1 second rule.
Yeah.
Which is basically, you need to know within 1 second of that entrance music hit who is coming out.
Yeah.
Whether it be because of the Stone Cold glass break or those opening notes, if you don't know within 1 second who's coming out, that is not a good entrance.
Well, it's, you know, look at all of the great ones. They all had it. You know, Edge, You Think You Know Me, and then the drums hit. Stone Cold's glass shattering. The Rock with, you know, Art Do You Smell? And then even Randy Orton, as soon as you heard that, I hear voice, you knew that's Orton. Triple H, you know, as soon as you heard that guitar, that dong, before Lemmy even opened his mouth, you knew that's Triple H.
I mean, you got Jericho's one too. I mean, even now, like he has a really good point. Like, you know, it's Nakamura. You know, it's Alexa Bliss. You know, it's just off the top of my head, just thinking like the first one's the top of my head. You know, it's Charlotte. You know,
Carmella.
Yep, you know it's Carmella. I mean, all the top stars. I mean, right now that's really what they're doing. Roman, the same. Like,
yeah, but you
Roman.
Even yep.
You look at like that. you look at that next generation, though, guys like a Baron Corbin. To this day, when his music hits, like, if I'm half paying attention, like I pretty much am 24/7, and I hear that music, I look at the TV because no idea who that is.
I agree. I agree with his music.
And his new music is worse. It's the most generic piece of video game ripped off crap there ever is. It's as bad as Jason Jordan's synthesized Kurt Angle music.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Jason Jordan's new music, because that is also absolutely horrendous.
It's terrible. It's almost as bad as when, right after Edge and Christian split up, and Christian had the falling fireworks, and you heard, Christian, now you're on your own.
God,
okay, I'm gonna take issue with that. I love that song.
I actually do too. I actually love that entrance.
It was so dumb, though.
But you knew who it was.
Yeah, you knew exactly who it was.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
His entire goal was to get under your skin. You know, this was just prior to CLB period, where he was the creepy little bastard.
Somebody finally gets that reference. I've been calling, and this is going to make me sound so terrible, I called my kid a creepy little bastard the other day, and I got yelled at for 10 minutes, and then I had to show my baby mama the video on Facebook.
Why it's a joke.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, because he looks like him, I get it. And I was like, yes, because my 18-month-old son, his head is a little too large for his body. He's really skinny. He's blonde, and he puts his hand over his eyes and looks around.
Yeah, that sounds like baby Christian.
That's 100% baby Christian. And if I could get his brother to wear the blonde wig, they would be Edge and Christian for Halloween. But he won't wear the wig.
You tell him you're the boss.
Well, I've already got to dress up like I have a Dos Caras mask that got sent to me in a pro wrestling loot box, so that's what Daddy gets to be for Halloween.
There's going to be one big Dos Caras.
Screw you, Dan. On that note,
you're going to be two Dos Carases. You're going to be
Quad Caras? Yeah, Quad Caras. Thank you. If I don't have enough negative body images as it is. On that note, we're going to start to wrap it up here on our special edition of the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast starring Nickolas Patches Jarosh. Patches, what do you got coming up for the website? Here's your shameless 5 whatever second plug. Talk about the website, talk about yourself.
So we've got, with SummerSlam coming up, we've got a lot of content coming up focusing not just on SummerSlam, but Destination X is only a week away, and as Dan has helped me find, there is a lot of independent wrestling going on over the next week and a half, and so we are going to have stuff coming out starting probably within the hour, focusing on just all the great wrestling we're going to get over the next week and a half.
Dan, do you want to do it now, or do you want to wait till tomorrow?
You guys can find me on Twitter at RealDJarette, and take it home, Ed.
So he's going to wait till tomorrow. And as you guys know, I am the host of this show and of the Sports du Jour podcast. My name is Ed Burkeen. You used to be able to find me in the football, baseball, hockey, and college football section as well as wrestling. I've kind of taken a step back from a few of those, getting myself primed up and ready for the baseball playoffs and the beginning of hockey, football, and basketball and college football season. So this is kind of my mini vacation from everything. But you can still find me covering all things TNA. Dan is going to do some power rankings this week, and you can find us all there. Patches, got one question. Do you know what to say here? Because if you're obviously not down with the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast, we have just 2 words for you.
Keep listening.